One of my very favorite things to do is to be in the mountains, away from roads, cars, buildings, with simply a pack, a tent, and a friend. I am hooked on backpacking, and I would backpack all summer long quite happily if I possibly could. If there's any other sport that is so good for the body and for the soul, I don't know the name of it. And it's not just the views that make you feel giddy and delighted, though that's certainly part of it. What I like about backpacking is that it quickens the senses and heightens your normal pleasures, and I think teaches you skills that are useful in the rest of your life. For example, backpacking can be such hard physical work that at meal times you're starving and food tastes so much better in the mountains than it does normally. Of course, you want your pack to be as light as possible, and any excess weight or gear is your enemy. So this forces you to prioritize and simplify and to do without. You need to carry everything that you need to survive in your pack, and this gives you a great feeling of self-sufficiency. And I think that those skills are probably useful in the rest of your life as well. Of course, if you forget a piece of equipment or if something breaks, you simply have to do without or to improvise. Usually you have to rely on your fellow backpackers, and on every trip something unexpected happens. And one of the pleasures actually is to see the group be creative and problem solve together. If you're on a trip led by a group, you get to meet people who you would never know otherwise, and backpacking tends to bring even the closest friends closer together. I always feel like it's a privilege to live outside for several days, but I'd be lying if I said that returning to civilization isn't sweet as well. You never appreciate wall-to-wall carpeting and indoor plumbing as much as you do once you've had to live without it for several days. It wasn't until people's lives began to be filled with factories and roads that escape to the mountains was something that people sought. People have always climbed mountains and traveled over them. My favorite example from history is Hannibal, who took his war elephants and troops over the Alps on his way to attack Rome. How he did it, I don't know. But usually mountaineering was a means to an end and not the pursuit itself. The golden age of alpinism is considered to be the first part of the 19th century, and it was at this time that many of the peaks in the Alps were climbed for the first time. In America, our culture of mountaineering is closely tied with our collective history as adventurous pioneers and the writings of naturalists like Henry David Thoreau and John Muir. What's remarkable about these early explorers is that they were able to go nearly everywhere without the sort of equipment that we have today. For a backpacker, the days before Gore-Tex and polypropylene may as well be 100 years ago as 1,000 years ago. Everyone who talks about Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay's first ascent of Everest always mentions they did it without oxygen tanks. Can you believe it? I actually didn't like backpacking. The first couple times I tried it, I couldn't believe that we were doing something so physically demanding for fun. I got terrible blisters. I was not used to sleeping on the ground. It was cold at times, but I had friends who were patient, and I always came back from trips feeling so satisfied with myself and having wonderful memories and stories. And the more and more I see of life, I become convinced that really it's all about the stories.